It's Nina Concepcion here, and what I'm going to be sharing is how I'm so sick of doing it all alone. And for you guys that are hopping onto the live, make sure you comment, say hi, let me know that you're there so I know that it's you. And it is a conversation. So, I want you guys to get involved. Let me know what your thoughts are, what your answers are, what your ideas are, because we're all here to share in this amazing experience together. Hi, Jason. Thanks for coming on board again. Okay, so it's all about doing it alone and not doing it alone anymore, because, being on this journey of life, we tend to think that we need to do it all by ourselves. And we tend to think that, well, I tend to think, and I'm going to take responsibility for my own thoughts. I think that sometimes things won't get done unless I do everything myself, because as a recovering perfectionist, I think in my mind that sometimes it's not going to get done well unless it's me that does it. And something that I've come to realize more and more and more is that when we can actually come together and when we can actually work together on a similar vision and a similar direction, we're actually able to create synergy. And for those of you who don't know what synergy is, it's the sum of the parts are equal to more than the sum of the parts individually. Let me say that again. The sum of the parts together is more than the sum of the parts individually. So 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2. It equals 3, 4, 5, 6, 100, 200. And that's where the magic is. And I think that we get so caught up in our own ego and we get so caught up in how we think things should be that we actually forget to ask for help. There's a really good quote by Les Brown. I love this quote. He says, don't ask for help because you want to, don't ask for help because you're weak, but because you want to remain strong. And it's that mentality of when we're asking for help, sometimes we think that means that we're weak, but it's a sign of strength. Hi, Aurelie. I can see that you're here as well. Okay, so it's those things that we really want to explore. So as I go through this, I want you guys to tell me, what ways do you think that you can start letting more people in? And maybe what are some reasons why we get into this mentality of doing it ourselves all the time? Because the first thing that we need to do in overcoming doing things by ourselves is having the self-awareness, which is module 2 for the gnudis. Having the self-awareness that you do have the mentality of you needing to do it alone. Like, I remember when I became single for the first time in a really long time, I was like, I don't need a guy, I can do it all myself. And even though I'm still independent now, being in a relationship again, it's still one of those things where I was still very much in the mindset of I can do everything myself. When the truth is, in a relationship, there are things that you can explore in a relationship that you can't explore by yourself. And there's also things that you can explore by yourself that you can't explore in a relationship. It goes both ways. But I think it's about having the awareness of where our resistance is with regard to why we feel like we have to do it ourselves. Because there's nothing actually wrong with doing it ourselves. But it's about making a conscious decision about when it's actually more empowering for us to reach out, and when it's more empowering for us to actually do something on our own. And it's just a balance of having those two things. And after you have that self-awareness, making a conscious decision, do I want to do it alone in this situation? My mind just went to the gutter. Or do you want to explore it with another person and sharing that experience with another person? And it's not even just the people, it's that situation. Do you want to say yes to this situation, this circumstance, or do you want to say no? And rather than want, which is going to be what's going to be most empowering for you? Because sometimes what we want is not actually what's the most empowering decision that we can make. But sometimes we forget that because we get so caught up in thinking about what it is that we want instead of what's actually for our highest good and our highest self. And after you're able to do that and you start realizing and expanding your self-awareness as to why you're trying to do it all yourself, you're in a much better position to make a conscious decision as to what it is that you want to do. I remember when I first started to open up my business, I thought I had to do everything myself. I thought that I had to run all the events by myself. I thought that I had to do my website by myself. I thought that I had to build my community by myself. And the truth is, I haven't done anything completely on my own. And if it wasn't for the people in my life and the people that I'm close to and the people that I have a relationship with and people that I serve, and just the people that come and go into my life, I wouldn't be where I am today. And it really has been a process of letting my barriers down. And there's something that Brené Brown talks about. I love Brené Brown. For those of you who don't know of Brené Brown, you can look her up on TEDx, and you can also read some of her books. But in the Gifts of Imperfection, Brené Brown talks about how we can't actually make a difference between numbing our negative emotions and numbing our positive emotions. We cannot do both. When we numb the sadness and the pain, we actually numb the joy and the love and the happiness as well. And for me, I realized when I was in real estate that I was blocking people out of my life, and I wasn't letting as much love in because I was so concerned with doing everything by myself, and I was so concerned with not letting anyone in and not getting hurt. But then I didn't realize that it was actually sacrificing a lot of the love in my life as well. And Aurelie said something as well. What did she say? How do you know a decision is not empowering before you actually see the consequences? Sometimes a genius idea turns out to be a total fiasco, but you only know it after. That is an amazing question. So how do you know a decision is not empowering before you actually see the consequences? So I have two answers to that. One is trusting your intuition, which is a muscle, and most of the time I believe our intuition isn't wrong, but sometimes we get into conditioning and we're thinking also part of the collective. So sometimes it's difficult to listen to our intuition, but after the situation we're like, oh yes, I knew that was going to happen. And the other answer to that is you don't. Like sometimes you just don't know if you're making an empowering decision, and that's why I'm a big believer in you have to fail, because when you fail, you learn from it. So if you make a decision, like I was talking to Aurelie before, if you make a decision and you can feel that it's disempowering for you, next time you know that it's disempowering and you have the awareness to be able to make a different decision the next time. But if you haven't made any decisions or any choices or made any mistakes, then you're not actually going to be able to exercise that muscle of knowing the difference between black and white and sadness and happiness and just the opposite ends of things. The more you can actually feel the pain of things, the more you can actually feel the joy. And it's such a paradox, but it's so true. And this is the same with plant medicine. For those of you who know or have journeyed with any plant medicine, it can be incredibly intense, but in both ways, in the painful sense, but also in the incredibly loving, gratitude, loving, I'm not sure if I said that already, in that sense as well. Because the thing is, sometimes we think that if something doesn't work out, sometimes we think that it was wrong. I'm a true believer that whatever it is that's going to happen is supposed to happen. And we still have a choice, but that's going down a different topic. But if you choose something and it ends up being wrong, it was still likely and it was still needed for your growth in order to move to the next thing. So for example, I graduated in exercise physiology, and then from that I went into real estate, and then now I'm a coach and speaker and I've got my online membership. It doesn't mean that being an exercise physiologist educator, trainer. I wouldn't necessarily call myself an exercise physiologist, but I studied it and I graduated my degree. And being in real estate, they weren't wrong. They were things that served me at one point in my life and that don't serve me anymore, but have led me to where I am now. Even if you think of all your past relationships, a lot of people think of it as, oh, it was a big waste of time and I wish I didn't invest that much time in them and they weren't the one for me. When the thing is, you were with them when you were supposed to be with them. And if it wasn't for that person, then you probably wouldn't have attracted the next person in your life. I know that I wouldn't have attracted my partner that I'm with now if I didn't go through all my other experiences with all my ex-partners. So I think it's that mindset of being okay to fail and being okay to make mistakes. And as long as you're trusting yourself the best you can in each moment without getting caught up in being a perfectionist and wanting to get everything right all the time. I know I'm definitely guilty of that. And it's, like I said, I'm a recovering perfectionist. But yeah, trust yourself because I know that you'll know the right decision for you. I hope that answers your question. If you have another one, just let me know. And so the last thing after that I can recommend to you guys with regard to not having to do things alone is, so 1, having the self-awareness, 2, knowing what to say yes and no to, and 3, I think the biggest thing, especially for me, with realizing that I don't have to do things alone and not actually having to do things all alone, is surrounding myself with people who empower me, who believe in me, and remind me of who I am and why I'm here. I've mentioned it before, I go to a lot of events and I run a lot of my own events and I meet so many amazing, beautiful people. It's so important to surround yourself with people who have a similar mindset to you and have the same vision for your life as you do, because if they don't have a similar vision for themselves, then they just can't have the same vision for you. They just can't. People can't believe something in you if they don't believe it in themselves. And I've gotten to that point where it's not difficult to meet these kind of people. What I have found has been difficult is keeping that connection and that consistency and that relationship with multiple people all at the same time. And it's, if you think about it, a lot of us have a small group of friends that we're really, really close to. And we maybe have another group of friends that we can call up, even if we don't speak to in a few weeks or a few months or even a year or two, but you know that they're still there for you no matter what. And it's one of those things that I truly believe that we can start creating communities where we can have a more ongoing, regular conversation about where we are, what's important to us, and actually building more meaningful, deep relationships and connections with each other. And I'd love to hear more about what ideas you guys have and, your vision for humanity and what you're doing about it, because it's really about surrounding myself with those types of people, surrounding myself with leaders. And I know that that's what you guys are. And I know that a couple of my gnudi members are watching as well. And for those of you who are interested about what it is, I'll put a link down below with what the gnudi membership is all about. But it's what I wanted to do is bring all those different communities together and have an ongoing conversation, because I'm a part of so many amazing, beautiful groups. But it tends to be some consistency for a couple months, and then after a couple months, people forget about the group, or they go to another event and then they become part of another Facebook group, and then they're there for a couple months, but then it's very disconnected. And I truly believe that if we bring everyone together and we can share in experiences together, we're actually able to leverage our time a lot more, and we're actually able to connect easier. Not just online, but offline as well. If we can start building this amazing community where it's not just connecting with the people who you're close to, but connecting with the people who are close to the people that you're close to, you just grow this family of trust and support with ongoing conversations about what actually really matters. And I I know that there's a lot of conversations going on like this at the moment. I just feel like they're all very separated. And I really want to bring them together so that it can be a lot easier for us, because when we do it all alone, it's so hard. It's like climbing uphill and having all of this luggage and baggage. But the thing is, if you're climbing up a hill with a group of people and you're all carrying a little bit of everything, it gets that little bit lighter and it's so much funner and it's not as exhausting and you don't feel like giving up so much, and it's so much easier to stay on track and to keep going when you have people there with you, supporting you, who believe in you and themselves as well. And Aurelie said something else. Love the gnudi family, together we're stronger. Exactly. And again, I'll put the details down below for anybody who wants any details about that. And for those of you who aren't watching live, I'd still love to hear what your thoughts are with regard to your opinion, your experiences, and what you feel about doing things alone, and the fact that we don't have to do things alone anymore. And it's about coming together and it's about celebrating and having lots of fun, but it still also gets difficult sometimes, which is why we also really need that support. And Sherelle said, hell yeah. That's awesome. And we are having our next gnudi catch up. Even for those of you who aren't gnudi members, still come along. It's $25 in Sydney, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be the 17th, Friday 17th of February. So we want to meet more of you and connect with more of you. So make sure that you say hi and yeah, let me know what you guys think. Lots of love, and I will post another live sometime in the next week or so. Speak to you guys soon. Have a good day. Bye.